Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, doing math they don't want to do, 6 hours until the alarm, 5 hours, 4, you've done this math yourself, everyone has. And somewhere in that math is a quiet, tempting thought. What if you just didn't need to sleep at all? Imagine it for a second. No more lost hours, no more grogginess, every single night converted into pure usable time. You could learn a language, finish a degree, build a business, all while everyone else lies unconscious for a third of their life. It sounds like a superpower, but the real answer is far stranger and far darker than simply getting more hours in the day. Here's the reframe worth sitting with before you go any further. Sleep isn't downtime. It isn't your brain switching off so your body can rest. It's one of the most aggressively active processes you go through every single day. And the moment you understand what's actually happening while you're unconscious, wanting to skip it stops sounding like a superpower and starts sounding like a bit like unplugging life support to save on electricity. Let's start with what sleep is actually for, because most people get this wrong. You've probably heard that sleep is when your body rests. That's true, but it undersells what's happening by an enormous margin. Neuroscientist Macon Nettergaard at the University of Rochester discovered something in 2013 that reframed the entire field. She found a system now called the glymphatic system, a network that flushes cerebrospinal fluid through your brain tissue, washing out metabolic waste that builds up while you're awake and thinking. One of the substances it clears is called beta amyloid. You don't need to remember that name exactly, just what it does. It's a sticky protein that accumulates in your brain during waking hours, and if it isn't cleared out, it clumps together over time. That clumping is strongly associated with Alzheimer's disease. Nettergaard's research showed that this cleanup process runs up to 60% faster during sleep than during wakefulness, because your brain cells actually shrink slightly while you sleep, widening the channels the fluid moves through. So here's the question worth pausing on. If your brain is running a nightly cleaning cycle just to keep itself from clogging with its own waste products, what exactly do you think happens if that cycle never runs? You don't have to guess, because people have tried to find out, not always on purpose. In 1964, a 17-year-old named Randy Gardner attempted to set a world record by staying awake for as long as humanly possible, as part of a high school science fair project. Stanford sleep researcher William Dement got involved partway through, monitoring him out of scientific curiosity as the days added up. Gardner made it to roughly 264 hours awake, just over 11 days without any stimulants. Here's what that actually looked like from the inside. By day 2, he struggled to focus his eyes. By day 3, he was irritable and forgetful and had mild hallucinations, at one point convinced a street sign was a person. By day 4, his hands trembled and his speech began to slur like someone slightly drunk. By day 9, he stumbled through basic math and forgot what he was doing mid-sentence. By day 11, in a press conference, he managed to hold a mostly coherent conversation through sheer willpower and adrenaline, but his short-term memory was falling apart in real time. He survived and slept for about 15 hours afterward, then largely recovered. But researchers studying his case and others like it since have noted the same pattern again and again. Sleep deprivation doesn't feel like calm, steady tiredness. It feels like your mind slowly losing its grip on reality, one function at a time. That's unsettling on its own. But before we go further, you might be thinking of an exception. Haven't you heard of people who genuinely function on 4 hours a night forever with no ill effects? People like that do exist. Geneticist Wang Huifu at UC San Francisco identified a rare mutation in a gene called DEC2, carried by a small number of people worldwide, that allows their brains to complete the same restorative sleep cycles in far less time. These people aren't skipping sleep. Their biology is simply more efficient at it, compressing the same cleanup and memory work into a shorter window. Here's why that detail matters so much. It doesn't disprove anything you've just learned, it confirms it. Even these rare, genetically gifted short sleepers still sleep. They still run the glymphatic cleanup. They still consolidate memory. They've just found a biological shortcut through the process, not a way around needing it entirely. Nobody anywhere in any recorded case has ever been found to skip the process altogether and stay healthy. That's worth sitting with for a moment, because it's as close to a hard rule as biology gets. That's unsettling on its own. But it gets stranger, because there's a condition that shows you what happens when this isn't days of deprivation but a permanent, irreversible loss of the ability to sleep at all. It's called fatal familial insomnia, and it is exactly as serious as it sounds. It's an extraordinarily rare genetic disorder, first clearly documented in the 1980s and studied extensively by neurologist Pasquale Montagna and colleagues in Italy, where the mutation has been traced through several affected families. The disease is caused by a misfolded protein called a prion, the same category of biological anomaly responsible for other degenerative brain diseases. This prion accumulates specifically in the thalamus, the part of your brain that regulates the transition into deep sleep. Here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. Patients with this condition don't simply struggle to fall asleep. Over months, their ability to enter deep restorative sleep is destroyed entirely, piece by piece. They pass through a phase of increasing panic and paranoia, then hallucinations indistinguishable from waking dreams, then rapid physical decline mimicking advanced aging, and the disease is, without exception, fatal, typically within 1 to 2 years of the first symptoms appearing. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. If losing the ability to sleep permanently and completely is a death sentence written into your own biology, what does that tell you about how essential this downtime actually is? The honest answer is that sleep was never optional in the way we treat it. It was never the body's inefficiency, some evolutionary leftover we simply haven't optimized away yet. It's core infrastructure, and it isn't just cleaning up chemical waste. Something else entirely is happening in there, something almost as strange as the cleanup itself. While you sleep, your brain isn't idle, it's rehearsing. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker at UC Berkeley has spent decades studying what your brain actually does during the different stages of sleep, and one of his most striking findings involves memory. During deep sleep, your brain replays the events and information from your day, compressing them, filing them, deciding what to keep and what to let fade. During REM sleep, the stage where most vivid dreaming happens, your brain does something even stranger. It takes disconnected pieces of memory and emotion and starts stitching them together into new, sometimes bizarre combinations, testing patterns that your conscious, waking mind never would have tried. This is why people occasionally wake up having solved a problem they went to bed stuck on. It's not magic. It's your brain running an offline simulation, free from the constraints of logical, linear waking thought, quietly experimenting with ideas in the dark. Now here's the twist most people never think about. If you never needed sleep at all, you wouldn't just be a well-rested version of yourself with extra hours. You'd be a fundamentally different kind of mind. A mind with no nightly cleanup, slowly drowning in its own metabolic waste. A mind with no memory consolidation, unable to properly file away what it learns day after day, until yesterday and last month start blurring together into meaningless static. A mind that never dreams, never runs those strange offline simulations that occasionally hand you your best ideas fully formed. You wouldn't be a superhuman version of yourself. You'd be closer to Randy Gardner on day 9 forever, except without the 15 hours of sleep waiting at the end to fix it. There's a reason evolution kept this trait despite the fact that, on the surface, unconsciousness for 8 hours a night seems catastrophically dangerous for a species being hunted by predators. Sleep is expensive, biologically speaking. It leaves you vulnerable, blind, and unresponsive for a third of your life. Evolution doesn't tolerate expensive traits unless the alternative is worse. And here, the alternative, running your brain without this nightly maintenance, was so much worse that every complex nervous system we know of, from fruit flies to elephants, does some version of it. Now bring this back to you, because this isn't just an abstract biology lesson. Think about the last time you pulled an all-nighter, or ran on 4 hours of sleep for a stretch of days because work or school demanded it. Remember how your thoughts felt slightly foggy, how small decisions felt harder than they should, how your mood tilted toward irritation over nothing in particular. That wasn't just tiredness. That was a small, temporary preview of exactly the process Randy Gardner went through, and exactly the process happening far more severely in fatal familial insomnia. Your brain was already accumulating waste it couldn't clear fast enough, already struggling to file away the day's information properly. This is also why chronic sleep deprivation, the kind that doesn't feel like an emergency because it's just 5 or 6 hours a night for years, is now linked by researchers, including work building on Nedergaard's original discovery, to elevated long-term risk for cognitive decline. It's not simply that you feel tired tomorrow. It's that the invoice comes due slowly over years, exactly like leaving a machine running without maintenance for long enough and taking it for granted. So the next time you look at the clock, doing the math on how few hours you have left before your alarm, remember what's actually happening the moment you close your eyes. Somewhere behind your eyes, a cleaning crew is starting its shift, flushing out the chemical debris waking thought leaves behind. Somewhere deeper, a filing system is sorting through everything you learned that day, deciding what becomes permanent and what gets quietly discarded. And somewhere in the strange, disconnected logic of your dreams, your mind is running experiments it would never dare try while you're awake. You imagined a version of yourself that never needed any of this, a version with unlimited hours and no downtime at all. What you may not have realized is that the version of you who skips this nightly maintenance isn't a more productive version of yourself. It's a mind slowly forgetting how to be itself, one missed night at a time.